The poor girl was crying because she was forced to marry an old man. But on their wedding night he went into the bathroom, and when he came out the girl screamed when she saw what had happened. The small village where Anya lived was a place forgotten by time, where the dirt streets were swept by the cold wind and the simple houses were barely able to shelter their residents from the elements. Since she was a child, Anya knew that life would not offer her any ease. Her parents, although poor, always tried to protect her from the harsh reality, but at 23, she already carried on her shoulders the weight of the sacrifices made by her family. "Anya, sit here," her mother said in a tired voice as she pointed to the worn chair next to the wooden table. "We need to talk." Her father sat on the faded couch, his eyes fixed on the floor as if he were afraid to look at her. Silence hung over the room, heavy as a storm cloud. Anya felt a chill run down her spine before she even heard the words that were about to change her life. "My daughter," her father began hesitantly. "A man. He came to visit us yesterday. He is very rich, Anya, much older than you, but he is willing to help our family. Help all of us." Anya's eyes widened in disbelief. "What are you saying, Dad? What kind of help?" Her mother interrupted, holding Anya's hands tightly. "He wants to marry you, my daughter. It's the only way we can save this house, put food on the table, and let your brother Anton continue his studies." But I don't even know him," Anya exclaimed, standing up abruptly. His voice trembled with indignation. "How can I marry someone I've never met in my life?" "We have no choice, Anya," her father replied, finally looking up to meet her eyes. There were tears on his face, aged by hard work and hardship. "You know as well as I do that we're sinking. We don't have money to pay the bills or to buy medicine when we get sick. This man, he promised to take care of everything. He promised to take care of you." Anya felt her heart tighten, as if an invisible hand was crushing it. She knew her parents were right. He knew that without the help of this mysterious man, his family could succumb to poverty. But the cost would be your freedom, your dreams, maybe even your happiness. I need to think," he muttered, leaving the room with heavy steps. As she walked towards the window that overlooked the backyard, she looked up at the gray sky and felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. How could I reconcile the love I felt for my family with the desire to live a life of my own? Deep down, she knew there was no other way out. To save her family, she would have to agree to marry that old millionaire man, even if it meant giving up her youth and dreams in exchange for financial security. Anya looked out the window at the backyard where her brother Anton was trying to fix a rusty bicycle. He was just a teenager, but he already had the seriousness in his eyes of someone much older. She knew he felt the weight of the situation too, even though his parents always tried to protect him from the worst hardships. "Anya," her mother called, approaching carefully. "I know this is all hard for you, but I want you to understand something." Anya turned slowly, her arms crossed over her chest as if trying to protect herself from the cold and the emotions that threatened to spill over. "Your father and we have never let our poverty keep us from the values that matter. Your education is the only thing we can guarantee." Her voice was choked, but firm. "Even when we don't have enough food for everyone, we always sacrifice something so that you and Anton can study." Anya lowered her head, her eyes brimming with tears. She remembered all the times her mother would share the last slice of bread between her and Anton, insisting that they needed energy to go to school. Her father, in turn, would sell the few valuable belongings left in the house, an old radio, a rocking chair just to buy notebooks and pencils. "Father and I have gone hungry many times," her mother continued, her voice lower now, almost a whisper. "But we have never let you two miss out on the chance to learn. We know that your future depends on it. Even if it seems impossible today, we want you to have a better life than we did." Anton appeared in the doorway, listening to their conversation. He held a tool in his hand, stained with grease, and looked at Anya with a mixture of sadness and determination. "I don't want you to get married for me, sis," he said, moving closer. "I can work. I can do anything to help. I don't want you to sacrifice your happiness for me." Anya shook her head, swallowing the lump that had formed in her throat. "It's not just for you, Anton, it's for all of us. You know, Dad needs medication, and Mom can barely sleep because of her back pain. I see it all, even if no one talks about it." She took a deep breath, forcing herself to maintain her composure. "You taught me that education is the key to a better life. And I promised myself that I would do anything to make sure Anton had that chance. Marrying this man, maybe that's the only way to honor everything you've sacrificed for us." Her mother came over and hugged Anya tightly, as if trying to protect her from all the suffering in the world. "You are so strong, my daughter, so brave. But it hurts so much to see you go through this." In the silence that followed, Anya realized that her decision had already been made. She knew that her parents had prioritized her education above all else, even when it meant giving up their own basic needs. Now, it was her turn to repay that sacrifice. As painful as it was, she was willing to face the unknown to ensure that her family would survive. Despite all the hardships, Anya had always found refuge in her studies. From an early age, she had seen school as a place where she could dream big and imagine a different future. Her hands, calloused from housework, held her books with a delicacy that reflected the value she placed on education. While others gave up in the face of adversity, Anya stood out. Her teachers quickly recognized her unique brilliance, a mix of sharp intelligence, fierce determination, and an insatiable thirst for knowledge. "There's something special about you, Anya," her literature teacher once said to her after she handed in an essay about the challenges of rural life. "Your writing is like a window into the soul. You don't just tell stories, you live them." But it wasn't all praise and recognition. At school, Anya often faced dirty looks and snide comments from classmates who came from wealthier families. She wore patched uniforms while others sported shiny new clothes. During recess, she would hear whispers behind her back. "She only gets good grades because she wants to impress the teachers." Or, "How is someone like that going to get anywhere?" Yet Anya never gave up. To every insult, she responded with redoubled effort. When others went out for walks or fun, she stayed home, studying under the dim light of a constantly flickering lamp. She knew that her only chance of escaping poverty was through learning. Her efforts finally paid off in her final year of high school. After a tough competition, she received a full scholarship to study business at a renowned university in the capital. It was a moment of pride for her family, but also of apprehension. How would they be able to pay for the tickets, the rent, for a tiny room in the big city, or even the basic expenses? "I'll do it," Anya said firmly, seeing her parents' worried looks. "I'll work part-time and study. No matter how hard it is, I'll find a way." And she did. She worked as a waitress in a busy cafe during the day and spent her nights immersed in books. She slept very little, ate poorly, and often came home exhausted, but she never gave up. Every high grade, every passing grade in a difficult subject was a victory not only for her, but for her entire family. 4 years later, Anya walked across the university stage, wearing a simple gown that had been lent to her by a friend. Her diploma in her hands was proof that she had overcome all obstacles. The audience applauded, but few knew the sacrifice that this thin and tired young woman had made to get there. However, even after graduation, prejudice continued to haunt her. In job interviews, she would hear questions disguised as curiosity. "So, did you grow up in a rural village?" Or, "This university offers a lot of scholarships, doesn't it? It must have been hard to compete with students from private schools." Anya learned to smile politely, hiding the pain she felt. She knew that no matter how hard she tried to prove herself, some people would always see only her humble origins, but that didn't stop her. She continued to seek opportunities, determined to show that she deserved her place in the world. "I may have been born poor," she thought to herself as she walked home after yet another frustrating interview. "But my mind and heart are rich, and no one can take that away from me." It was at this moment of reflection that fate decided to cross her path again. The marriage proposal to the old millionaire appeared like a shadow that hung over her life. But now Anya had something that she had lacked before: an education, a background, and above all, an unshakable conviction that any sacrifice would be worth it if it meant saving her family. Despite all her achievements, Ania still held in her heart the dream of true love. She imagined what it would be like to share her life with someone who loved her for who she was, not for the diploma on the wall or the strength of her character, but simply for being her. On silent nights when physical exhaustion tried to drown out her thoughts, she allowed herself to daydream, a marriage full of laughter, complicity, and looks that said more than words could ever express. But in reality, her hopes were often dashed. On occasional dates, when a suitor approached her with an interest in her intelligence and quiet beauty, everything changed as soon as he learned about her past. "So, you grew up in a very humble family?" They would ask, sometimes with genuine curiosity, sometimes with veiled disdain. When she answered honestly, talking about the hardships, sacrifices, and daily struggles, the sparkle in his eyes quickly faded. "Sorry, Ania," one of them once said, after a date that seemed promising. "You're amazing. But I feel like our lives are so different, I don't know if I could handle it." She just smiled, feigning understanding, but inside she felt as if a bucket of cold water had been thrown over her soul. It wasn't the first time, nor would it be the last. Each rejection left a mark, even though she tried to convince herself that it didn't matter. "Maybe I'm destined to be alone," she thought, as she walked back home under the starry sky. What broke his heart the most, however, was seeing his younger brother Anton facing the same kind of prejudice. He had grown up to be a hard-working, charismatic young man, always ready to help others. But despite his natural charm and good heart, the women in town rejected him as soon as they found out he came from a poor family. "They only care about money," Anton commented one evening, sitting at the kitchen table next to Anya. His tone was dejected, almost defeated. "None of them give me a chance when they know I work as a bricklayer's assistant and live in a house that looks like it's about to fall down." Anya put her hand on his, trying to comfort him. "It's not fair, Anton. You have such a big heart. They should see that before anything else." "But they don't," he replied, shaking his head. "They look at my calloused hands and see only poverty. They don't understand that these hands work hard because I want to build something better for us." The sadness on her brother's face cut through Anya like a knife. She knew exactly how he felt. They had both learned from an early age that the world could be cruel to those who weren't born with a silver spoon in their mouths. And though Anton tried to remain optimistic, Anya could feel the weight of rejection starting to chip away at his confidence. "I hate this," she said quietly, more to herself than to Anton. "I hate seeing you hurt because of something that's out of our control. I hate that the world is this way." Anton forced a weak smile. "Don't worry so much about me, sis. I'll be fine. I just wish things were different. For you too." Those words echoed in Anya's mind for days. She knew that as much as they both dreamed of a better life, reality was unforgiving. For Anton, it meant accepting that he might never find someone who loved him for who he really was. For her, it meant giving up her own dreams of love and happiness in favor of a more secure future for her family. "If I accept this marriage," Anya thought one night as she stared out the window at the moon, "at least Anton will have a chance. At least he won't have to keep fighting alone." It was a painful choice, but Anya had learned that life rarely offered easy options. With each sacrifice she made, she remembered the values her parents had taught her: love, dedication, and the importance of caring for one another no matter the cost. It was one unexpected afternoon when everything began to change. Anya was helping her mother mend an old dress in the living room when there was a firm, almost authoritative knock on the door. Her father went to answer it and returned with a thick envelope in his hands, his face a mix of surprise and disbelief. "It's from him," her father said, his voice cracking as he handed the envelope to Anya. "Christian, he's proposing." Anya felt her breath catch for a moment. The name echoed in her mind like distant thunder. Christian. She barely knew who he was, but she could already feel the weight of his proposal hanging over her head. Inside the envelope was a letter written in elegant handwriting, accompanied by documents detailing the terms of the agreement: a new house for the family, medical care for her parents, and a fund to support Anton's education. Each line seemed designed to reassure but also to reinforce the power and wealth of the man making the offer. "He promises to take care of all of us, Anya," her mother said, tears welling in her eyes as she read the words again. "Look at this. He says he'll make sure we never go hungry again." Anton, who had been sitting in the corner of the room trying to fix an old radio, stood up curiously. "But who is this guy? Why would he do this?" No one had a clear answer. Christian was a successful businessman whose fortune came from investments and real estate deals. He was known locally as a generous but reserved man, someone who appeared only at charity events and rarely gave interviews. To Anya, he was a complete stranger, a distant figure who now invaded her life with promises she wasn't sure she could accept. The next day, a luxury car pulled up in front of the family's modest home. Two employees got out carrying huge boxes and began unloading supplies directly into the kitchen. Rice, beans, oil, sugar, cans of preserves, fresh fruit, and foods Anya and her family hadn't seen in months. There were even packages of frozen meat, something they considered an unattainable luxury. "And he sent this too," one of the men said, handing a smaller package to Anya's mother. Inside was a new dress, simple but beautiful. It was for Anya. He really wants to impress," her mother murmured, holding the delicate fabric reverently. "What are we going to do, Anya? It's like he knows exactly what we need." Anya looked at the boxes stacked in the corner of the room and felt a tightness in her chest. Christian's generosity was undeniable, but it also carried a heavy weight. Each item he delivered seemed to be a silent reminder of the price she would have to pay. Her freedom, her dreams, maybe even her dignity. "I don't know who he is," Anya said finally, her voice low, almost as if she feared her words might offend the unseen man who was changing their lives. "But he's giving us everything we need." Her father sighed deeply, rubbing his temples as if trying to ward off a headache. "We can't ignore this, Anya. He's offering us a way out, a chance to start over." "But what about me, Father?" Anya asked, her voice shaking slightly. "What about me? Am I going to have to marry him without even knowing who he really is?" The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone in the room knew that this was a question with no easy answer. Christian had money, influence, and apparently a genuine willingness to help. But to Anya, he was still a stranger, an old, wealthy man who expected her to sacrifice her youth in exchange for her family's safety. Later, as Anya surveyed the gifts scattered around the house, she felt a mixture of gratitude and anguish. The food would solve her immediate problems, but what she really wanted wasn't in those boxes. A future where she could choose who to love, where she didn't have to give up herself to save others. She walked to the window and looked out at the horizon, where the sun was beginning to set. "Maybe this is what I have to do," she thought, her eyes filling with tears. "Accept the sacrifice, so my family can live." Still, a part of her prayed silently that there was another way. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions for Anya. With each meal made with the food Christian had sent, she felt a mixture of relief and guilt. It was as if each bite carried with it the weight of a decision she hadn't yet fully made for herself. But it was during a cold, silent night that everything changed. Her father sat in the worn chair in the living room, holding his chest with one hand as he tried to take a deep breath. Her mother ran to him, distressed, calling for Anya. "He's in pain again. Something's wrong." Anya helped her father to the bed, but he could barely move. "It's not just fatigue, honey," he murmured weakly. "It's been going on for weeks. I just didn't want to worry you." The next day, they took him to the doctor, something that would normally have been impossible without the resources Christian had sent. After a series of tests, the diagnosis came quickly and devastatingly. Her father needed urgent heart surgery. The cost was astronomical, far beyond what any job or savings could cover. "I can get a loan," Anton suggested, his voice full of determination, even though he knew his savings were paltry. "I'll work more hours, take on any job." "No, Anton," Anya interrupted firmly. "You already do so much for us. This isn't something we can solve just like that." She looked at her parents, both of them weighed down by the weight of the news. Her father was pale, almost unrecognizable, and her mother seemed to grow older by the second as she tried to maintain her composure. Anya's heart sank, as if it were being crushed by an invisible force. That night she stood alone in the backyard, staring up at the stars shining in the distance. Each blink seemed to mock her indecision. She knew there was no other way out. Christian had given them everything they needed, and now, more than ever, he represented the only chance to save her father. "I can't be selfish," she told herself, her voice breaking. "This is my family, they depend on me." But the idea of marrying an old man, someone she barely knew, still haunted her. She pictured Christian's wrinkled face, his hands rough with age, and felt a shiver run down her spine. Could she really have the courage to give up her youth, her dreams, to ensure their future? The next day, she decided to talk to her mother. "I'll accept," Anya said, her voice as firm as she could muster, despite the lump in her throat. "I'm going to marry Christian. He promised to take care of all of us, and now more than ever we need that." Her mother hugged her tightly, crying silently. "My daughter, I'm so sorry about this." "So sorry. You don't have to feel guilty, Mom," Anya replied, trying to swallow the tears that were stubbornly streaming down her face. "I'm doing this because I love you, because I know it's right." Anton appeared in the doorway, having heard the last words of their conversation. He looked at Anya with a mixture of pride and sadness. "You shouldn't have to do this, sis. No one should have to sacrifice so much for us." "But I will," Anya said, forcing a weak smile. "Because I know that if it were the other way around, you would do the same for me." In the days that followed, the preparations began. Christian sent more gifts, elegant dresses for Anya, new clothes for the family, even a car to transport them to the city where the wedding would take place. Each gesture of generosity seemed to reinforce the implicit deal, the comfort and safety of her family in exchange for her life. Yet Anya couldn't help the emptiness that grew inside her. She stared into the mirror as she tried on the wedding dress Christian had sent, a simple but elegant design, and barely recognized the woman staring back at her. This was not the life she had dreamed of, but she also knew that sometimes dreams had to be sacrificed for the sake of reality. "I'm doing this for my father," she repeated to herself like a mantra. "For Anton. For Mom. I can handle this." On her wedding day, as she walked slowly toward the makeshift altar, Anya tried to convince herself that she was making the right decision. Christian had his back to her, dressed impeccably, but his tall, sturdy frame seemed intimidating. When he finally turned to greet her, Anya felt her heart race, not with love, but with fear. "You look beautiful," Christian said, his voice deep and gentle. His eyes shone with something she couldn't quite identify. Gratitude? Satisfaction? Or perhaps just the anticipation of someone who knows they're about to win a prize? Anya forced a polite smile, but her heart screamed with pain. She was about to make the greatest sacrifice of her life, a choice made not out of love but out of necessity. Despite her reluctance, she knew there was no turning back. "I'm doing this for them," she thought, as she placed her hand over Christian's. "So they can have a future." Their wedding night was enveloped in a heavy silence, broken only by the distant sound of the wind blowing against the windows of the luxurious suite where Christian had booked their first night as husband and wife. Anya sat on the edge of the bed, her fingers nervously intertwined, trying to process everything that had happened in the last few hours. The ceremony had been brief and almost cold, with Christian maintaining a polite but distant demeanor. He seemed to be exactly what she had feared, an old austere man whose presence commanded respect but also discomfort. "I'm going to the bathroom," Christian said, breaking the silence. His deep voice echoed through the room before he disappeared behind the closed door. Anya sighed, relieved to have a few moments alone to gather her thoughts. She looked around, taking in the opulent surroundings, silk curtains, dark wood furniture, and gold accents that screamed wealth. Everything here was so different from the simple world she knew. But then, something strange happened. When Christian stepped out of the bathroom, Anya barely recognized the man who stood before her. The wrinkled face she had seen throughout the eye ceremony was gone, replaced by youthful, almost vibrant features. His dark hair shone in the soft light of the lamp, and his blue eyes, once hidden by thick glasses, now shone with an intensity that took her breath away. What's going on? Anya stammered, abruptly rising from the bed. Who are you? Christian smiled, a genuine smile that belied the seriousness he had displayed up until then. It's me, Anya. It's Christian. Anya shook her head in disbelief. You're not old. He stepped forward, his hands raised in a gesture of calm. I know this must come as a shock to you, but I need you to listen to me. Please sit down. She hesitated for a moment, but eventually sat back down on the bed, still dazed. Christian pulled up a nearby chair and sat across from her, keeping a respectful distance. I used makeup and prosthetics to make me look older, he explained, his voice soft and sincere. I needed to test something very important. Test what? Anya asked, her voice shaking with confusion and indignation. You lied to me? To my family? It wasn't a lie, Anya, he replied quickly, noticing the accusatory tone in his voice. It was a test. I wanted to know if you would marry me for who I am and not for my money or status. Anya frowned, still trying to understand. But why does that matter? You already knew I was doing this for my family. It wasn't out of love. It was out of necessity. Christian nodded slowly, as if he had expected this answer. Yes, I knew. And that's exactly what struck me. When I learned your story, I saw how you sacrificed your dreams and happiness to take care of your family. I saw your strength, your character, your generosity. That's rare, Anya. Very rare. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I could have anyone by my side, women who would only be interested in me for my wealth. But I don't want that. I want someone who sees me for who I am, not for what I have. Someone who understands the true value of things. Anya felt a lump in her throat as his words sank in. She wanted to be angry. She wanted to scream at him for deceiving her. But something inside her was starting to soften. There was sincerity in his eyes, a vulnerability she hadn't expected to find. So, you've never been old? She asked, still trying to process everything. No, he admitted. I just needed to be sure that you were willing to give up everything for something bigger than yourself. And you've proven that not only by accepting the marriage, but by putting your family first, your entire life. Anya lowered her eyes, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill over. But what if I had said no? What if I had refused? Christian smiled slightly. Then I would have understood. And I would have continued helping your family in another way, without expecting anything in return. But you didn't say no, Anya. You accepted. And that showed a lot about who you are. She raised her eyes to look at him again, still uncertain about what to feel. Why would you do that? Why risk so much, just to test me? Because I believe that true love goes beyond appearances, he replied, his voice full of conviction. And because from the moment I learned about you, I knew I wanted to know you better. I wanted to see if you were really the person I imagined. And now, he stopped, looking directly into her eyes. I can say with certainty that you are even more extraordinary than I expected. Anya felt her heart beat faster. For the first time since everything had started, she realized that perhaps this decision, which she thought was just a sacrifice, could turn into something much greater, something unexpected. The silence between them was thick but not uncomfortable. Anya was still trying to process everything Christian had revealed to her so far, his hidden youth, the test of his character, and the depth of his intentions. She felt like she was in a strange dream, where nothing made sense, yet at the same time everything seemed inevitable. There's one more thing you need to know, Christian said, leaning forward slightly. as if he wanted to get closer to her without invading her space. His tone was serious, almost reverent. Something that explains why I decided to get to know you better before making any decisions. Anya frowned curiously. What is it? Christian took a deep breath as if choosing his words carefully. My grandfather. He knew you many years ago. She blinked in surprise. Your grandfather? I don't understand. He nodded, his blue eyes shining with a mixture of nostalgia and admiration. Yes, he told me about it shortly before he died. My grandfather used to travel around the countryside when he was young, buying land and investing in small properties. One time, he passed through your village. He was lost, sick, and broke. Do you remember that? Anya's eyes widened, the memory coming back in a flash. Wait, that old man who showed up at our house? He was weak, dehydrated, and my mother insisted that he stay with us for a few days until he recovered. Exactly, Christian confirmed with a soft smile. You and your family took him in without hesitation, even though you knew he couldn't afford it. You shared the little food you had, cared for him like family. He always said it was one of the most memorable experiences of his life. Anya looked down, remembering those days vividly. She was just a child at the time, but she remembered how her mother would prepare simple broths for the man, and how her father would help him walk to the shade of the tree in the backyard. They never expected anything in return, they just did what they thought was right. I never knew his name, Anya murmured, still stunned. We called him Sir. He never forgot your names either, Christian continued. Before he died, he asked me one thing, to find you and discover who you really were. He said you and your family were examples of kindness and generosity, qualities he deeply admired. Anya looked up in disbelief. But he asked that? Why? Christian hesitated for a moment, as if weighing the weight of his next words. He wanted me to marry you. Anya's heart sank. She felt as if all the air had been sucked out of the room. Marry me? Why? Because he believed people like you were rare, Christian explained, his voice thick with emotion. People who put others before themselves, who face hardships with courage and dignity. He thought you would be the right person to build a family with me, but Christian paused, searching her eyes. I didn't accept it right away. I needed to be sure you were really who he said you were. Anya felt a tightness in her chest. So, all this, the wedding, the test, was it because your grandfather asked? Not exactly, Christian replied, shaking his head. His request was just the starting point. He was the one who made me think about the kind of person I wanted by my side, but I only made the decision after seeing with my own eyes how extraordinary you are. How much you love your family, how much you are willing to sacrifice for them. He got up from his chair and walked to the window, looking out at the starlit night sky. My grandfather always said that true wealth is not in money, but in the people around us. He learned that from you and your family, and now, after everything I've seen, I understand what he meant. Anya remained silent, tears slowly starting to stream down her face. She thought about all the sacrifices she had made, all the times she had given up something for the love of her family. He never imagined that these simple gestures could touch someone's life so deeply, much less that of 2 generations of the same family. I don't know what to say, she whispered finally, her voice breaking. Christian turned to face her, again moving closer slowly. You don't have to say anything now. I just want you to know that from the beginning, my intention was never to deceive you. I needed to understand who you were. And now I know I made the right choice. He held out his hand gently as if asking permission to touch her. Anya stared at his hand for a moment, then raised her eyes to meet his. There was sincerity there, and something else. Something she hadn't expected to find. Respect. Maybe, she thought as she wiped away her tears, maybe there was a chance for something more, something that went beyond sacrifice and necessity, something that could blossom in time. I just need a little time to think, Anya said, her voice firmer now. to figure all of this out. Christian nodded, respecting her request. Of course you have all the time you need. He smiled slightly, and for the first time Ania realized that the smile wasn't from someone who was buying her future. It was from someone who wanted to build it with her. The minutes that followed were filled with a deep but meaningful stillness. Christian stood in front of Anya, his hands now relaxed at his sides, as if he were patiently waiting for her to digest everything they had discussed. The air between them seemed to vibrate with unspoken emotions that they could both feel intensely. Anya, he began, his voice softer now, almost a whisper. I need to tell you something else. Something you might not expect. She looked up at him, still trying to put the pieces of the puzzle that was this revelation after revelation together. Her heart was pounding in her chest, and she felt like she was about to hear something that would change everything all over again. I fell in love with you, Christian said, his words coming out in one breath, as if they had been trapped inside him for a long time. He swallowed hard, clearly nervous but determined to continue. It wasn't just the kindness you showed my grandfather, or the sacrifice you made for your family. It was you. Everything about you. Your strength, your courage, your ability to love without expecting anything in return. That's rare, Anya. Very rare. The words echoed in her mind like a silent thunderclap. She had never imagined hearing anything like that, especially not from Christian, the man who until a few hours ago she had believed to be old and distant. The idea that he could feel anything for her other than gratitude or admiration was completely unexpected. You fell in love with me? She repeated incredulously, as if needing confirmation that she had understood correctly. Christian nodded, his eyes fixed on hers. Yes, I know this may sound strange considering everything that's happened, but from the moment I started observing your life, the way you care for your family, your dedication even in the face of hardship, I couldn't help it. There's something about you that goes beyond physical beauty or intelligence. It's who you are, Anya. Who you really are. Anya felt the tears come back to her eyes, but this time they were different. They weren't from sadness or confusion, but from something deeper, something she couldn't quite name. It was as if all the barriers she had built over the years were beginning to crumble, allowing something new to enter. I don't know what to say, she murmured, her eyes dropping to the floor for a moment. I never imagined anyone could feel this way about me. Christian took a step forward, approaching her slowly, as if he were afraid of scaring her. You don't have to say anything right now. I just want you to know that to me it doesn't matter what anyone thinks. It doesn't matter what people see when they look at us. To me, you're perfect just the way you are. Anya looked up again, meeting his eyes. There was a vulnerability there that she'd never seen before, a raw, unguarded honesty that touched her deeply. Christian, she said, her voice shaking but firm, I don't care what you look like. I don't care if you're young or old, rich or poor. What matters to me is who you really are. And now, after everything you've told me, I can see that you're someone special, someone who values the right things. Her words hit Christian like a bolt of lightning. He blinked in surprise as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Then, slowly, a genuine smile, the first one that was truly free of masks, appeared on his face. You don't know how much this means to me, he said, his voice cracking with emotion. I've always been afraid that people would see me only for my money, for my status. But you see beyond that. You see who I am. Anya nodded, feeling a lightness growing in her chest, as if, for the first time in a long time, she could breathe without the weight of the world on her shoulders. Perhaps she thought this was the beginning of something she had never dreamed possible, a true connection based on respect, understanding, and love. So, what happens now? She asked hesitantly, but with a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Christian smiled, reaching out to her again, this time without hesitation. Now we start over, as two people who have so much to learn from each other, and who knows, Maybe we can build something together, something real. Anya looked at his hand for a moment, then took it gently. It was a simple gesture, but it was loaded with meaning. For the first time in a long time, she felt that maybe the future didn't have to be all sacrifice. Maybe it could be something more, something beautiful. Anya felt something inside her break, not with pain, but with relief. The tears streaming down her face were now hot and free, filled with an emotion she could barely describe. She looked at Christian, seeing him no longer as the old, distant man she had agreed to marry, but as someone real, someone who understood her and saw her for who she really was. Without thinking twice, she stepped forward and hugged him with all the strength she had. It was a hug full of meaning, of gratitude, of forgiveness, of hope. Christian hesitated for a moment, surprised by the intensity of the gesture, but then he wrapped his arms around her, holding her as if he feared she might disappear. "I'm so sorry," Anya murmured against his chest, her voice muffled by tears. "So much fear, so much guilt. I thought I was doing everything wrong, that this marriage would just be a sacrifice." Christian gently stroked her hair, his voice soft and firm. "You've never done anything wrong, Anya. Everything you've done has been out of love, and that's the most right thing anyone can do." She pulled back slightly to look into his eyes, still crying, but with a tremulous smile beginning to form on her lips. "I didn't know there could be something like this between us. I thought it was just an agreement, an exchange, but now I see that it can be so much more." Christian nodded, his eyes shining with the same tears he was trying to hold back. "True love isn't built on looks or wealth, Anya. It's born from what really matters: character, kindness, respect. Everything I've seen in you from the beginning." Anya felt a warmth grow in her chest, something she hadn't felt in a long time, maybe ever. It was as if all the dark clouds that had hung over her life were finally dissipating, revealing a clear sky full of possibilities. "So, shall we start over?" she asked, her voice choked but full of determination. Christian smiled, holding her hands gently. "Yes, let's start over. As two people who chose to be together not out of obligation, but because they saw something special in each other." They looked at each other for a long moment, without needing to say anything else. The words had already been spoken. The hearts were already connected. What remained now was to build, not just a marriage, but a life. A life where they could share laughter, dreams, and even hardships, knowing that they would be by each other's side, no matter what the future held. Over the next few months, Anya and Christian began to build this new life together. He continued to help his family, now not as an act of charity, but as a genuine member of that circle of love and support. His father recovered fully after surgery, and Anton was able to resume his studies with new opportunities created by Christian. But most importantly, Anya had finally found something she thought she would never have: a partner who loved her for who she was, not for what she could offer. One night, as they walked together under the starry sky, Anya stopped and looked at Christian. "You know," she said with a shy smile, "I've always dreamed of a love like this, but I never imagined it would come like this, in such an unexpected way." Christian smiled back, squeezing her hand. "Life has strange ways of surprising us, Anya. Sometimes what seems like the greatest sacrifice can end up being the greatest blessing." She nodded, looking out at the starlit horizon. "And now I know that true love goes beyond appearances or wealth. It is in the little things, in the gestures, in the choices, in the way we see each other." Christian pulled her closer, kissing her forehead tenderly. "And that's exactly what we're going to build together, Anya. A love that's based on everything that really matters." As they walked back home hand in hand, Anya felt like she had finally found where she belonged. It wasn't a perfect life, far from it, but it was a life full of purpose, love, and hope. And deep down, she knew that this was the greatest reward anyone could wish for. If this story touched your heart, Leave your thoughts in the comments. Did you identify with Ania's courage and kindness? Share this video with someone special who also believes in the power of true love and the strength of kindness. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss exciting stories like this one. This is where the best stories come to life and you won't want to miss out. And if you have ever lived or witnessed a story of overcoming and love like this, tell us below. Your experiences can inspire many other people. Click here to see more videos like this and embark on unforgettable stories. Thanks for watching. Until the next content.